If you want to learn about metastates, then you're in the right place because I literally just practiced my metastates before turning on record on this video. And the metastates model is something that I practice every single day, multiple times throughout the day, starting with when I wake up in the morning and usually at the beginning of every single task. For example, when I start this video and every other video, I have been practicing and training with the metastates model with Dr. Michael Hall, the creator of metastates, for over 10 years now. I've been on the stage with him, co-training topics and skills of metastates in countries like Brazil and Rio de Janeiro, in Bali, Indonesia, in Colorado, in the United States, in Sydney, Australia, and basically all around the world. And so I'm really excited to share with you how you can apply the metastates in your life and personally for yourself, as well as interpersonally and even professionally. So if you're interested in learning about metastates, then you're in the right place, because I look forward to going on a semi-deep dive with you today, considering that this is just a free social media post. So I'm really excited to go on this journey with you, and I'm actually happy that I'm excited to take you along on this journey as well. So before we dive into how you can use metastates in your life, one of the things I want to talk about is a little bit about the history of metastates, because I think it's pretty interesting that metastates were introduced to the field of NLP in 1994 to 1995, 1996-ish. And around that time, it was recognized by the INLPTA as the most significant contribution to NLP. It's been referred to as the model that ate NLP, if you're familiar with neurolinguistic programming, because in my experience, metastates is what ties all of NLP together systemically. And so when you learn to look through the eyes of metastates, you'll never look at the world the same again, is my hope for you. And so let's talk a little bit about what a metastate is. So metastates in general is a tool for working with our emotional states, the emotional states of ourselves, but also we can interpersonally metastate and work with others. And the idea is that not only do we experience emotional states in the world, but we feel about our feelings. Not only do we think about our experience in the world, but we think about our thoughts. And so this happens for better and also for worse. I can imagine there's been a time when you found yourself frustrated. For example, maybe you get frustrated being stuck in traffic, and then you get angry at yourself for getting frustrated. And then you get pissed off at yourself for getting angry because you should know better. And then you get upset at yourself for getting pissed off at yourself for getting angry because you're frustrated. And now you've got this big, what we refer to in the field of neurosemantics as a dragon taking you over, which started with a little bit of frustration, but as we compound and layer these states on top of each other, they get stronger and more intense, and they compound, which is an interesting facet of metastates. And so one of the underlying principles underneath the metastates model is that higher governs lower. So higher governs lower. And just like in an organization, the CEO gives commands to the leadership, which then filters that down to the management, which then gets down to the employees. And so higher to lower is how these metastates work. And to try this out, I'd like to offer you to try on a little thought experiment for me. So let's just try this out. I want you to imagine that you're feeling really patient right now. And so you could think about a time where you felt really patient, have all the time in the world. And I want you to now we're going to take impatience and bring it to your patience. So I want you to get impatient at yourself for being patient. Like, can we get started already? So take a moment, close your eyes if you need to, and take a moment, enter into a state of feeling patient. I have all day. And I want you to get impatient at yourself for feeling patient. Another way that I like to glue these together is to add a because statement. So I'm impatient at myself for being patient because I've got things to do. I've got important things to do. Why am I wasting my time being patient? Now let's just try the same exact two states, impatience and patience, and let's try this the other way. I want you to start to get yourself into a state, so kind of shake that off first of all. Get yourself into a neutral state, shake that off. And I want you to get yourself into an impatient state. So imagine maybe a time in the recent past or something that might come up in the future where you would feel impatient. For me, one of the times where that would happen is, for example, if my computer is running too slow, and so I'm getting that pinwheel of death, as they call it on Macs, that's when I could start to feel a little bit impatient. But I want you to take a moment and find a time where you feel impatient in you. And of course, you can pause this video until you get yourself into a state of feeling impatient. Perfect. Now what I want you to do is bring a state of patience to the impatience. So I can be patient with my impatience. It's okay, I've got all day to be impatient. And notice how that transforms that state. If you bring patience to your impatience, all of a sudden some spaciousness opens up, you feel like you have more time. But if you bring impatience to your patience, it actually makes things a lot worse. Even though you're being patient, you're being hard on yourself, you're being impatient with yourself for being patient. Whatever is on top governs what's below. Another example with this could be, imagine that you're calm. Take a moment, get yourself feeling calm. And I want you to get angry at yourself for being calm. Just try it on. It's just an experiment. It doesn't have to be super real, but just enough that you can feel it. So you're angry at yourself for being calm. Now, I like to, again, like I said, add a because statement. So to make it more real for myself, so I'm angry at myself for being calm because I should be standing up for myself, or I should be standing up for that other person. So I saw someone do something that I don't believe is right to a child, but I'm calm about that. I'm angry at myself for being calm. Why are you calm about that? You should have done something. You should do something about that. Might be some reasons for this meta-state of anger at calmness. Okay, shake that off. Now let's try this one a different way around. Let's bring calmness to our anger. So imagine that you see something that violates your values. You see that person, whatever it would be for you. For me, I see someone doing something that I don't agree with to a child, that I think is not right or not fair or unjust, and I get angry about that. But I bring calmness to my anger. I'm still angry, but I'm calmly angry. And I want you to try that on for yourself. Try bringing calmness to your anger. And what that does is it tempers or textures the emotion below, because again, whatever is higher governs lower. And so the cool thing about this is that sometimes when we get ourselves into those spirals, like I started out with earlier in this video, these kind of dragon state spirals, these negative spirals of you're frustrated, you get angry at yourself for being frustrated, you're pissed off at yourself for being angry, you're upset at yourself for being pissed off. Now, the cool thing is that with metastates, we can, any state that we have access to, we could bring it on top, and if we bring a resourceful state on top, it will transform everything below. So I'm frustrated, I'm angry at being frustrated, I'm pissed off at myself for being angry for being frustrated, I'm upset at myself for being pissed off, for being angry, for being frustrated. I can accept that I'm upset at myself. I can accept that I'm upset at myself for being pissed off, for being upset, for being frustrated. I think I got that right this time around, but I think you get the point is whatever you put on top will transform, it will organize, modulate, it will coalesce down and transform everything below it. And so this is why it becomes really important and useful to have access to some really good resourceful states that you can use to temper and texture whatever emotional states that you get yourself into. And a really cool thing about this is that you can never be too deep into a spiral to just put something better on top. So a great example of this is panic or anxiety. So a lot of times people will be afraid of an imagination. So they imagine something in the future that's going to happen and they feel fear about that imagination. Then they get afraid at themselves for being afraid and afraid at themselves for being afraid of being afraid. And as this loops applying fear to fear and then fear to the fear of the fear and fear to the fear, each time that loops it gets stronger, which ultimately will lead to potentially a panic attack. But the cool thing is no matter how deep you are in the fear to fear spiral of anxiety, at any moment you can just accept. I accept, or I give myself permission to be afraid. I give myself permission to be afraid of whatever it is that I'm afraid of in the world. And all of a sudden, you chop the dragon's head off, and all of a sudden, the whole house of cards crumbles down, falls apart. It might take a moment, it might take a couple of breaths, but when you just bring acceptance or permission, acceptance and permission are some of the great meta states that I recommend having quick and easy access to in your life. I've got plenty of videos on my YouTube channel about the power of acceptance. I'll put some links to those in the description here. But no matter how deep you get into the spiral, it's never too late to put something useful on top, some calmness, some permission. I give myself permission to feel how I'm feeling, some acceptance. I accept that this is how I'm feeling right now. Some joy or pleasure or any other resourceful state, depending on the context. But no matter how deep you get into the spiral, you can always put something better on top. And because, just like in an organization, higher governs lower. And so whatever you put on top is going to influence everything below it. Now, using metastates is not just for working with negative emotions. So it's not just for I am experiencing something bad and I want to bring something good to temper and texture or transform the thing that's bad. But we can actually use metastates generatively to create some really high, blessed, royal, powerful, transcendental states in ourselves. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I practice my metastates multiple times throughout the day, metastating myself and my emotions. And I have an amazing memory of when I was in San Francisco right before the pandemic happened, and I was riding on the train somewhere, and I said, well, I'm sitting on a train, what better could I do with my time? I could go and scroll in Instagram or something, but I said, you know what, let me just practice my metastates right now. And so I practice some acceptance and some appreciation and some joy and some respect and some love and some compassion and some peace and some power and and I layered them on and on and on, and I was just so buzzing with amazing, powerful, transcendental energy. I felt almost it was such a high state. I felt just so high on life and on the metastates that I could tell that people around me were getting influenced by this empowering energy field that I had created in myself. And so when we take metastates, powerful and positive ones, and we can layer them, so if you want to try this out, let's see, I've got my Metastate Mastery card deck here from perceptionacademy.com, my website. I'm going to open them up and let's just play see what the Metastate gods have for us in store for us today. If we just pull out some random positive ones. So I'm going to kind of go through here randomly, and let's see what kind of good ones we get. So first one I pulled is confidence. So take a moment, get yourself in a state of confidence. What's something that you're 100% confident of? If you had the remote control for the television, are you confident that you could turn it on? How confident are you that you could turn on the television if you had a remote with batteries in it? 100% confident? I'm impressed. So am I. I'm confident. Now, I just pulled another random card. It says focus. What I want you to do is apply focus to your confidence. So I want you to focus in on that confidence, that you can change you have control over the television. How confident are you? Now focus on that confidence. I'm going to pull another one here. Now, the higher up we go, the harder it is to balance this literal stack of cards, the house of cards, if you're not used to it. But the card that I pulled was ecstasy. So I want you to feel just a high level of ecstatic joy and apply that to your focus on your confidence. So that might take a moment if you're not used to getting into such a powerful state of joy. Take a moment, think of a time when you were ecstatic in your life. You can pause the video if you need to. When you've got it, I want you to, again, get that confidence. Can you control a TV if you had the remote? How confident are you that you could? And I want you to focus on that confidence, and I want you to bring ecstatic joy to that focus. Just ecstatically joyful as you focus on your confidence. I'm going to grab one more. Let's see what happens here. Again, we're going to go random. So randomly, I pulled out appreciation. I want you to appreciate that you can feel ecstatic joy for focusing on your confidence. Now, I may have lost you here because once we start going up 4 levels, 5 levels, it becomes a little bit more challenging to balance them until we become more comfortable and practice at working with our own metastates. But the interesting thing about metastates, and this is something that I hear from a lot of people when they first start out learning it, again, I've been training metastates in my own company as well as alongside Dr. Michael Hall, the creator of Metastates, for over 10 years now. And so along the journey, a lot of people say it's a little bit confusing at first. And it's kind of weird to ride the spirals of our mind until it kind of clicks and you get it. And once you get it now, you will gain the ability to access and apply powerful emotional states to temper and texture any negative emotional states, as well as to amplify and to create these really amazing recipes, these powerful, profound recipes of positive and empowering states like you've never had before. And again, the way I just did it with these cards was basically random, pulling them out of a deck of cards, literally. However, when I practice these in myself, I do it a lot more intentionally because I'm pretty clear on what states I need for whatever the activity that I'm going to be doing is. So when I am going to be doing a video, I've got my states that I get myself into before I do a video. If I'm going to be reading, I got my states that I go into before I read. If I'm writing, I have my states before I write, before I go into a training or a client session, or running, or whatever it may be. I've got states that I practice for every single situation, mapped out and clear and ready to rumble, so that when things happen now, another cool thing about metastates is that we can use it in real time. So a lot of the tools and techniques from NLP, you go back and you focus on changing things from the past or on preparing things for the future. But metastates is one of those tools that we can use in real time when we need them the most. So I'm going to take a peek at my notes here and see if there was anything else that I wanted to cover here for you. I think that's all for today. I'm curious what your questions are, what your comments are. I have a lot of resources on the Perception Academy website for you to check out, where you can learn more about metastates, including some home study courses, one specifically on metastates, as well as one called the Emotional Mastery Toolbox, which is one of the courses that I'm most proud of and I think has had the most profound impact on my students. But I'm curious what your questions and comments are. Did you get some value of this? What would you like to know to go deeper? My name is Jason Schneider. I work with coaches, leaders, and personal developers to unleash the highest and best of human potential using cutting-edge psychological models such as neuro-linguistic programming, neurosemantics, coaching skills, and self-actualization psychology. And I hope that you found this video valuable and that you'll have a little bit more power and control over your states. If I was to give you a homework assignment, what I would have you do is to pick a few states that you'd like to have more of in your life. And so the way to think about that would be to think about either situations that kind of get you triggered off and what emotional states would help you in those situations, and or looking future focus and more generatively is what states would you like to have more of in your life? Maybe peace and love or joy or confidence or focus or love or compassion. Maybe you want to apply those states with yourself, which is one of the other cool things about the metastates model, is that the focus is on self-reflexive consciousness. And so it's a really powerful way for us to learn how to take the tools and skills of neurolinguistic programming and neurosemantics and apply them to ourselves so that we can be more congruent in ourselves, more fulfilled in ourselves, and better leaders and coaches and communicators to the people around us. But I hope you found this video valuable. Of course, like it. If you know anyone who would benefit from it, feel free to share it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I love to teach people skills from neurolinguistic programming and neurosemantics and self-actualization psychology to improve your personal and professional life as a coach, whether you're a formal coach or informally. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you in a future video, in the comment section, and perhaps in a future course.